Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. Let us now just take a few moments to let body and mind settle naturally and quietly. You don't have to do anything in particular except to remain present for this process of settling. As to how fast your body and your mind is going to settle, do not do anything to try to speed it up. Do not do anything to try to shift or to try to encourage it, except for simply being present. So to be present also means the opposing factor has to be present. The opposing factor is making a determination to not be present. In other words, making a determination to not be dragged around by distractions, by plans, by even a certain ideal that you might entertain in your head. Let that all go and say, these are all distractions. And what I want to do now is to allow body and mind to settle right here on this cushion, on this seat, in this room. Let body and mind settle into a place of quiet, settle into a place of ease and comfort, where both body and mind are happy to meet each other again and to simply look at each other, so to say, and enjoy each other's company body enjoying mind's company, and mind enjoying body's company. Perhaps even imagining the mind saying to the body, take your time, and the body saying the mind, likewise, take your time. And both being patient with each other as they both settle into each other's company. As they settle into this place of quiet and ease, there is a degree of letting go, and letting go, and letting go. Letting go of distractions, letting go of the urge or the desire or the habit of going somewhere else, meeting someone else, discovering something else, letting go of all of that. So be aware as how you begin to settle, you also begin to let go, to drop off all these different burdens, different plans, different desires. Letting them go because right now you have determined you are not doing those things. Not that they're not important, but right now is not the time. Once again, good evening to all of you. Welcome to EBS. Maybe for some of you, it's the first time since a while. This last couple of years certainly has been very interesting. And also hello to those of you who are joining us on Zoom. Maybe you are in this local area, but for different reasons you can't be here, and then some of you, I think, are from further away. So definitely this pandemic has opened up different avenues for us to participate in things, ways of participating that in the past, even if it was possible, we would never thought to be desirable. But then one side of this pandemic is, also us discovering actually what I thought was bad wasn't so bad after all. And then what I thought was good, maybe it wasn't that good. So all of this still requires some time to really know what's happening. But if we learn anything, I think one of the things that we should learn is the Buddha was right when he said that, everything changes. Everything changes. Just like during the 2.5 years when things were a lot tighter than they are now, you see different people, ourselves, other people, how, initially may be very excited about being able to connect, right, through Zoom and Skype or whatever else you use. And then there is the fatigue stage, and then disappearing, and then after a while reappearing, and now maybe I think there's some people who kind of decided, actually, I'm just going to stay at home from here on out. And to those who make that decision, I hope and pray that it is truly and truly because you are happy and free in your cave. But if you are not, be careful, because you can kind of close in, and then your world becomes smaller and tighter and tighter and darker, and that's not very helpful. As much as there's such a strong tradition in Buddhism for solitary retreat, but solitary retreat can turn into solitary confinement. But that which liberates and that which binds us, the good news is it's not somebody else. The bad news is it's also not somebody else. Yeah, so both the good news and the bad news is not somebody else. So then when it turns into confinement and it is not somebody else, both the good news and the bad news is that it can be very easy how to get out of that confinement. It can also be impossible to get out of that confinement because you have locked yourself up and you have decided to throw away the key. Then it can be very hard for others to even help to get you out. So all I'm saying is pay attention to that. Pay skillful attention, not obsessive attention. So much of what the Buddha taught that now is the word mindfulness, right? Putting aside that big word that has all sorts of meanings and people can sell all sorts of things related to mindfulness, putting that aside, another way of understanding that is learning how to cultivate careful attention, helpful attention, skillful attention. So paying attention in a skillful way. The ability to pay attention is innate, but right now it's usually obsessive attention to unhealthy states of mind, states of heart. So it becomes, we have over this lifetime, and for those who are willing to entertain past lifetimes, if not, just look at this lifetime is enough. Through this lifetime, for many of us, not all of us in this room looking around, but ultimately we don't know, but looking around, for most of us, the days in front are a lot less than the days behind, right? So that means that we have kind of habituated certain circuits, like electric circuits, that when you flip the switch, it goes a particular direction. Yeah? Effortlessly, it goes in that direction. So for most of us, this circuit is quite fixed in the direction that is not helpful, that is productive of what the Buddha called suffering, productive of dissatisfaction. So it becomes already second, third, fourth nature. It just goes that way. So when the Buddha started to teach us, when the Buddha taught us this paying attention, he says that if we don't have this kind of attention, then business as usual is going to happen. And business as usual is usually unhealthy business, obsessive. So not only is it obsessive, it's obsessive in a unhealthy, unhelpful way. So that's how we tend to be. Right? So if you're investigating this question within the context of the Buddha Dharma, meaning the Dharma that makes you a Buddha, right? Buddha Dharma. Sometimes the superficial explanation of Buddha Dharma is Buddhism. And then slightly more sophisticated than that is the Dharma that belongs to the Buddha. But the real meaning of Buddha Dharma, when we say we practice Buddha Dharma, is the Dharma, meaning the truths, the reality, and the teachings that will make us Buddhists, awake. And it's not going to make you look funny like that, or exotic, That's just one expression of what Buddha is. It means that we become awake by following this, by applying the lessons that we learn from the Buddha Dharma. Then we can become awake. We can become free from confusion. But right now, because of our habits, we have habitualized habits that are productive of suffering instead of habits that are productive of happiness. So then we keep going in that direction. And so when we cultivate this attention, it's not just so when we set a few moments of letting the mind and the body settle, right? That's not an end unto itself. Although it's surely a good skill to have, to be able to, without a lot of effort, tell both body and mind to settle down and to enjoy each other's company. For one thing, it's free. For the another thing, it can be very satisfying. And thirdly, they are both always available. If either of them are no longer available, then we call it game over. So it's good for sure to develop the ability to, without a lot of effort, just say, hey, body and mind, why don't you, go play? And kind of sit down, and enjoy each other's company. But that, even that, which is such a wonderful thing to be able to do, it's really not why the Buddha even taught this. It doesn't stop there. Because why? Because you cannot always just sit there. You have to get up. And you have to get up and go do other things. Then when you go do other things, you are no longer in that zone where it feels really good, right? Where both body and mind are settled and it feels really good, right? It's not yet enough. The reason why the Buddha began by teaching us how to let body and mind come to rest, and the benefits that can arise when body and mind come to rest, when body and mind are attentive to each other, present for each other, then inflammation of the body and inflammation of the mind can all cool down. In fact, it's said that the second formal teaching that the Buddha gave the world is called the Sermon on Fire. And in that sermon, in that teaching, he says, all the world is on fire. The whole world is on fire. He says, body is on fire. Feeling is on fire. Perception is on fire. Mental activity is on fire. Consciousness is on fire. And so these are what's called the five aggregates. For those of you who are familiar with these terms, it says the five aggregates are on fire. Everything is on fire. Then he talked about when the fire dies down, when everything cools down, and then we become free. So first he taught, how to let these fires kind of cool down. But then when these fires have cooled down, next thing we have to do is we begin to, in that kind of good state of mind, where both body and mind are feeling pretty good, relaxed, open, not triggered. Another way to look at what our problem now is in terms of the nervous systems, right? The fight and flight nervous system. For many of us, that switch is stuck on the on, but in a very low level. Sort of not big enough for us to really be aware like we have a problem, right? If this is always on, that means it's heated, right? And this like this device is going to overheat, but it's overheating in a very slow but constant way, right? So we are drained. We cannot rest. So that when you actually need the fight and flight to operate, it cannot, it's exhausted. Then the other one, right, the rest and rejuvenate, also cannot work. Also cannot work. So we let things calm down. So then we are in this kind of good state of mind, but don't stop there. Because then from there the Buddha says, now in this good state of body and mind, turn your attention to some of the facts of life. That's when he says, turn your attention to noticing and noticing deeply the compounded nature of experiences. The compounded nature of experiences, the unreliable nature of experiences, the impermanent nature of experiences, the ever-changing nature of phenomena of experiences, and therefore the more deeply we understand this piece, the more willing we are to not fixate, to not try to control, to not try to manipulate, but to let go. As a natural response to seeing deeply the nature of things. I'm sure you have all read in books, Buddha taught about suffering. Buddha taught about impermanence. Buddha taught about, it's like, Buddha taught about a lot of very depressing things. But that's a label that we project on change, right? I mean, change itself could care less whether you like it or not. It just is. But actually, the Buddha also understood that it's hard for us to accept that if body and mind is still triggered. So he did teach things to help relax body and mind. Calm down that fire. Then in that state of calm, when we come face to face with impermanence or change, we won't get triggered. We will go, oh, that is how things are. Then perhaps not just that change is no longer threatening, but change is understood as possibilities. But you cannot just do daily affirmations, Change is good, change is good, change is good. Repeat in front of the mirror. Change is good, change is good, change is good, change is good. That is not the program. That particular program is simply gluing, stickers of rainbows and heart on top of things. Stick, 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 It's not the solution that the Buddha taught. So the solution that the Buddha taught is I would say, very, very skillful, very sophisticated. Understanding that before we can really directly understand and see reality as it is, we first have to prep body and mind. So therefore, he taught many, many things. And all these different things. And they're all part and parcel of what I like to call this toolbox, this tool bag, a bag of tools. And each tool in there have the power to do certain things. Then we learn. And the more we have in this bag of tools, then the more prepared we will be for this work of waking up. Then, particularly then for this work of waking up, one of the first things the Buddha said that we have to do is what he calls going for refuge. To seek refuge. To go for refuge. So this notion of refuge, the connotation there is that right now we are protectorless. We are without a protector. We are without. So you have no passports, which is really what a passport is. It's the country saying to other countries, this person is under our protection, give free and unencumbered passage. And this person is under our protection. But refugees don't have passports. They are stateless. So Buddha says all of us right now, whether we know it or we don't know it, we are stateless refugees. When we come to an understanding that we are stateless refugees, meaning we are dislocated from our true home, that when we understand that, then it's like there is no choice but to say, let me seek refuge. Let me now look for this protection. Let me look for this protection so that I can do what? So that I can have safe passage. And in this case, not safe passage so much to wander the world, and take nice selfies and eat, yummy food. And in this context, it's safe passage to go home, to go back to our true home, to go home. And going home to the nature of things, the nature of reality, which is the nature of mind, to discover that. Why? Because when that is discovered, when we arrive there, we then become a source of protection to others. We then become a source of protection to others. Hence, the Dharma that makes us Buddha. The teachings, the reality that renders us into being Buddhas, being awake. So that's why the Buddha emphasized and said, the very first step is to recognize our stateless and therefore protectorless and therefore dangerous situation that we are in. And once we recognize that, then we say, I need protection. I need refuge. I need someone to offer me protection and refuge. And there we say the three refuges are also called the three jewels, the three precious things. That's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. To take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is the one could say it's like the very first step or the entryway into practicing the Buddha Dharma. But actually, in a way, it's not just that. It's not just like the entry to, it's not just like a preliminary, because the ultimate taking of refuge is to become refuge. So it's actually the entire path. It's going from outer to inner to secret refuge. And secret here is not CIA, MI5, and secret here is it's so essential. It's so much on the essence level. And it's a secret as in, I can't even begin to explain to you. You have to experience it yourself. Secret in that sense. So there is the outer refuge, the inner refuge, and secret refuge. And so then, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha have the outer aspect, inner aspect, and secret aspect. So then, just this practice, this habit of taking refuge, of going for refuge becomes not just a one-time thing, but it becomes a way to remind us that from now until awakening as Buddhas, I go for refuge again and again and again and again. And as you do that, the refuge becomes at first as something outside, then they become something closer and closer and closer, then they become something very familiar, then they become things that are actually going on and happening inside of you, then finally that aha moment, you're like, oh, this mind itself is the refuge. This mind itself is Buddha. It's awake. That the awakened state is inborn, is innate. It's a nice idea. I call it a noble rumor. Yeah, not yet noble truth, but a noble rumor. So it's a noble rumor because it was rumored by, we say 2,600 years ago, he spread that rumor. And then enough people, for whatever crazy reason, trusted him, and they went investigating, and they confirmed that rumor themselves. On the secret level, they confirmed the rumor. Now that rumor has come down to you and me, and the Buddhist response to the rumor is not, thou shalt believe. Yeah, maybe, but more, you should believe enough that this rumor came from a noble source and therefore it's not fake news, right? And you are going to go investigate, right? In the spirit of discovering, how can this be true, right? How can this freedom be true? How can this, awakened state be true? But somehow it's because we say karmically, you already have some suspicion, enough hints and traces that you have seen that says, I think there is something to this noble rumor. So you need to verify, which is what truth is about, right? Veritas, to verify this. Is it true or not? Only when we are able to verify it ourselves, only when refuge arrives at that secret level, can the truth be known, and that truth is the truth that will set you free. And so that is what the Buddha invited us to do. He says, seek refuge. So in one teaching, in one discourse, he talked about how there are all kinds of refuges that people go after. He says there are those who go for refuge in basically power, fame, prestige, so on and so forth. Then there are those who seek power. And the way he talked about that, he says, like, those who seek power in the worldly gods. And so these are like the gods known to Indians at that time. There was Indra, king of the gods. There was Brahma, the source and creator of everything. And various of these gods. What we can understand from these gods, whether you want to take it literally, that there are these guys, somewhere out there. It's basically each of them represents a certain kind of power that we, foolishly kind of admire. Power to make things happen, even against the way things normally work. Ooh. Right? So some of us seek refuge from magic thinking. Some of us seek refuge in, somebody else is going to make me happy. I say the worst crime of Hollywood is in this movie called Jerry Maguire. The worst crime of Hollywood. Yeah, not like those violent movies and this and that. I say, it's in this movie called Jerry Maguire. Looking across this room, there's a couple of people who might be like, what? But most, I think, that movie. No, it's not the line, show me the money. That's like, not really the crime. You all remember the crime? Oh, yes. Huh?
You had me at hello. No.
You complete me.
You complete me. Oh, oi. That's like the worst crime of Hollywood is that. This idea that, someone else is going to complete you, right? And then there are so many people who are willing to be that piece that completes someone else. And that's the trouble. And then you changed. And the Buddha says, yeah, of course. And guess what? You also changed. Yeah. So all these are what, the Buddhist equivalent of, false gods and graven images that we worship, that we fall onto our knees. And so in Christian terms, the sin of a misplaced heart. A misplaced heart is the definition of sin. So then, in the Buddhist context, all these delusions that we have as to how we can become free. Insofar as our desire to be free from suffering, absolutely no difference from the most saintly person you can think of and the most heinous person that you can think of. Absolutely comes from the same place. A desire to be free from suffering. No difference. But the crucial difference is knowing or not knowing how to become free. What are the true causes of suffering and therefore to be abandoned, and what are the true causes of happiness and therefore to be cultivated. To be cultivated. So Buddha says, seek refuge. So the first source of refuge is Buddha. The outer Buddha was the Indian prince that lived about 2,600 years ago, that we call Buddha now. So the artistic representation of that person is, of course, one expression is here from the Southeast Asian tradition, this particular style of Buddha. He has a flame. That's the wisdom flame kind of coming up on the top of his head. That's what it is, that sharp thing. They say that ordinary people can't see that. It's not a visible thing, No, this is not Pentecost. You're like, ooh. So this is like the flame of wisdom, the tongue of fire. So the outer Buddha was the historical figure. So to seek refuge in the Buddha is to say, I rely on this person, not just on the person in the sense of like, I rely on him because he taught, these things, but it's really I rely on him in the sense of I temporarily at least believe that it's possible to be like him. That's when Buddha becomes an inner refuge. The outer refuge is, I really admire this person. And so you read about the Buddha, right? At some point you read about his life story. You read about what Buddha said he accomplished. And then you're like, I admire this person. So I want to learn more about this person. I want to learn more about what he achieved, right? And that's taking outer refuge. And you say, I'm going to pay attention to what he said. That's the outer Buddha refuge. The outer Buddha refuge becomes an inner refuge when not only are we attracted to that figure, that example, but now that figure begins to look like a possible example. That I too can become like him. He said that. He said, I too can achieve what he achieved. That is when the Buddha refuge has become an inner experience. The secret level, the most intimate level, so to say, is when, for the first time, we glimpse, we taste this Buddha state. And in some traditions of Buddhism, they say all of us have caught glimpses of this possibility. So that mind that knows clearly without error, without the mental defilements, that clear, bright mind, heart, right, is Buddha on the most deepest, innermost level. That's when the Buddha refuge has turned up on the secret level. Right? So sometimes called realizing one's own nature, or seeing one's own mind. Or in the Zen tradition, it's say your original identity, your original face before even your parents were born. Parents here actually is a reference to attachment and aversion. Our confused parents, so to say. So even before attachment and aversion, which is said to be the two factors that come from confusion or ignorance, give rise to attachment and aversion, and then the whole gamut of suffering comes from there. But this is your original face before even your parents were born, before even attachment and aversion were there, meaning more basic than attachment and aversion is this bright and clear mind free from mental defilements, free from the afflictive emotions, untouched by the afflictive emotions. That's the secret Buddha. So outer, inner, secret. Buddha. Then Dharma. Dharma means many things. Right? In fact, the Sanskrit word Dharma can be translated into English, over 40 different words in English. Like today, if your Hindu friends or colleagues or neighbors says dharma, they usually mean the notion of sacred duty. There's this idea that each one of us are born, depending on our karma, with a set of duties that we should fulfill. So our task is to discover what our calling, so to say, is. Fulfilling that is dharma, fulfilling your dharma. So Hindus would talk about swadharma. Swa is self, your own dharma. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, who is God with a capital G for Hindus, or some Hindus, there in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, his disciple, he says, it is better to perish performing your own dharma than to prosper performing someone else's dharma. It's talking about it's better to die being true to yourself. Of course, this is a tradition where the self is that divine self to be discovered. It's not the Buddhist way of talking about things. It's a little different. Maybe the result is the same. I don't know. I have not tasted either of those results. But the style is different for sure. Anyway, Dharma has over 40 meanings. So here, when we say take refuge in the Dharma, on the external, on the outer level, is referring to the conventional teachings of the Buddha that has come down to us from that time until now, transmitted for 2,600 years. Across different cultural areas, developed and further kind of not improved, because what the Buddha taught is just the way things are, but constantly being repackaged. Repackaged. Contents is the same. Repackaged according to different aesthetics. Right? So there is the IKEA furniture, right? And then there is the, furniture tradition of, I don't know about here, but in North Carolina, where I come from, it's a very proud furniture tradition. But then now everyone is going to IKEA because, Scandinavian prison design is very attractive. It's my private joke. It's like, the Scandinavians are like, these silly Americans. That's how a prison design look, I joke about, now that I'm getting older, it's like, it seems like, how can I have the Scandinavian prison, retirement plan? Like, what crime can you commit to be incarcerated long enough in a Scandinavian country that you don't have to worry about retirement funding? What crime? That's like the $50 million question. It's like, so if anyone finds out, okay, please let me know.
I used to be happy you come back to be an American.
Oh yeah, no. This is like how to, then you can be, in retreat for the rest of your natural life in a Scandinavian prison.
Perfect.
Which really looks like an IKEA, store. It's just Google, you're like, really? Anyway, right? We digress. I digress. So the packaging is different, right? But the contents. Sometimes, of course, you can get distracted by the packaging. And then you're chasing kind of the wrong things. But what you want is the contents, what's in there, right? So that content are the teachings that will free us from confusion, free us from suffering. So those are the conventionally available teachings in books, in Buddhist teachers talking about it, all of that. So lots of vocabulary, lots of ideas, all of that. That's the outer Dharma that we take refuge in. Then that outer Dharma begins to evolve, so to say, into inner Dharma. And that is when our own life experience begins to serve as Dharma lessons for us. Here it's very important to not, just now then get up and say, okay, I'm just going to let life teach me. No, it doesn't work like that, because we have lived a long time. We have not learned really anything in particular. In fact, we have just learned more habits of suffering. Yeah? So it's really important that you have to rely on the outer Dharma. But that outer Dharma cannot just exist in you as a set of beliefs. Then they are like those stickers, that you stick on to you, but it's not penetrated. It has to come into your heart and verified by your life experience. That's when the Dharma becomes an inner source of refuge. And the Dharma on the secret level is you see face to face the way things are rather than the way things appear to be. So you've realized the Dharma. So that your mind has become Dharma. So then they say at that point, your speech becomes the outer Dharma for others. Your speech becomes the outer Dharma for others. So on the Buddha level, when Buddha has been kind of actualized on that secret level, your mind itself now is Buddha, free of mental defilements, free from afflictive emotions, right? Then your mind becomes a Buddha for others. Third is Sangha. Sangha, in the Buddhist time, that word, and even now in India, Sangha, literally the word just means community. And in the Buddhist time, it was used by, linguists, historians said that it was used by not religious communities. They did not call themselves Sangha. But who used that term, interestingly? The guilds, professional guilds. Craftsmen, the blacksmith. They organize themselves and call themselves Sangha. And interesting, the Buddha chose that term for his new spiritual community. He says, we are a Sangha. And I think it really shows the kind of democratic nature of that community. As guild members, we are all in this together. So that's the original idea of when the Buddha calls his community a Sangha. However, Sangha as an object of refuge, right? As a reliable object, is not referring necessarily to you and I, who are in the same boat practicing together. Because that itself is not yet reliable. So then if you take refuge in that which is not reliable, you'll be disappointed. So then you say, then what is the outer Sangha? The outer Sangha, depending on Buddhist tradition, like in the Theravada tradition, the outer Sangha refer to the monastic order. The monastic order. And in fact, they are quite clear about that. They say, and not just the monastic order. And by the way, when you say monastic order, it's not individual monastics. And so in very strict Theravada communities, they say only when 4 monastics are present, then they constitute a sangha. So when we say we take refuge or rely on sangha, it's not on individuals, but on what these 4 individuals represent. And what they represent is those individuals who have committed their lives to realizing, to discovering, to verifying the Dharma that the Buddha taught. And have verified. So these are the saintly, you could say, Sangha, that they become an object of refuge. So that's the outer Sangha. The inner Sangha is when we begin to see how living that virtuous lifestyle, the lifestyle of not harming, is at the core of their life, right? Not harming in the sense of not creating harm in their minds. Recently, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I have a friend, communicating to me, basically, getting annoyed by some people. So, kind of tongue-in-cheek, he asked the question, he said, is it okay for me to hold some resentment against, some Dharma person, some like, Dharma friend, or someone I know at the center, Is it okay for me to hold some resentment as long as I don't act on it, So, of course, then I said, well, first of all, in our system, for good or for bad, fortunately or unfortunately, there is no one to approve or disapprove you choosing to harm yourself or harm others. You get it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a God-based system, There's no one to okay or not okay, so the question is kind of pointless.
Right.
It's a pointless question,
You
right?
basically have to ask yourself, is it
Yeah,
okay with you?
right. Are you okay with harming yourself,
Are you okay with harboring resentment or as a joke, or are you
Yeah.
okay with...
But the harming of, holding a resentment, he's holding a resentment. So he's basically saying, I'm harming myself. I say, yeah, are you okay with harming yourself or not, That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So not causing harm is in that sense of, these are individuals committed to not creating more suffering for themselves. And when we stop creating suffering for ourselves, right, innocent bystanders around us also don't suffer from secondhand smoke. Our unskillful actions impacting other people is basically secondhand smoke. And then, of course, the analogy of secondhand smoke, in fact, they say it's even worse than the smoker's smoke. That also applies to when we create harm to ourselves, we end up harming other people as well. So the inner Sangha is when we begin to see and understand how unskillful actions of body, speech, and mind creates harm, and we begin to naturally not want to create harm for ourselves or for others. That's Sangha. Yes?
So, creating harm for yourself, some people are definitely sometimes annoying, right? And, if you want to be annoyed by them, that creates harm for yourself. But if you want to be annoyed with them and make a joke and ask somebody else if it's okay or not, that just builds a reflection against creating harm for them. So it's about creating harm for yourself versus creating harm for others, and bouncing it back and forth. And do you ultimately pull it in here and turn it into this, or you bounce it back out and create?
In that situation, I know what you mean, but in that situation, it's tongue-in-cheek. He's just indicating to me that he's annoyed right now.
Yeah, right.
there's some other ongoing situation that he was telling me about already. And I'm like, well, what to say, Like, just because we are Buddhist practitioners, I have all these bumper sticker ideas, because I live in the land of bumper stickers. Like, it's this curse of like liberal communities, everybody has bumper stickers. And this one says, my bumper sticker is like, Buddhist, not yet Buddha. So, just because like I am trying my best doesn't mean like, I'll still get annoyed and I'll still, want to smack you in the face. But I'm working on, The Christian equivalent is really inspired by the Christian bumper sticker that says, only saved, not perfect. Yeah, that's the Christian equivalent. So this one will be only Buddhist, but not yet Buddha. Yeah. So anyway, to take refuge in Sangha, when Sangha becomes like an inner refuge, is when we are guided by that principle, that it becomes more and more natural. At first, the process is awkward, if not inconvenient. Don't kill, don't steal, don't, it just cramps my style, And then the more subtle, the more refined training of monks and nuns. Like, if monks and nuns actually follow the code of training by the Buddha, it really can feel like it cramps my style. Because it goes down to things like, when you eat, do not talk. When you are chewing, chew in a certain way. When you're walking. Of course, you can get very rigid in all of that and lose the spirit of what is being said, right? But be careful too. If you are too much of like, oh, just get the spirit, usually you are not training. That becomes also an excuse, right? So you have to kind of find that balance, right? But the Buddha's code of conduct for the monastic order, it's like over 200 rules of training. So down to things like, for example, every monk and nun is entitled to, so to say, 8 personal objects that they can own. But that's not how Buddhist monks and nuns live. It has evolved. Whatever word you want to use, okay, it has evolved, okay? But if you follow the early rules literally, there's only 8 things. And one of those 8 things is a sitting cloth that you own. It's like a very thin, like cushion, but it's not. It's just so that your robes are not soiled by the ground. And so this sitting cloth, it says, the size of this sitting cloth, for example, cannot exceed 4 fingers width on any of the 4 sides. Yeah. On any of the 4 sides. So that's part of their training. Okay. And the principle, of course, behind that is don't consume beyond your needs. Have a sitting cloth, it's reasonable. Otherwise, you soil your robes, and they are not allowed a wardrobe. Just one change really is all they have. So so there are practical things you do to prevent getting these robes. So anyway, many rules of training for the monks and nuns. Then there's this idea that, I'm not a monk and nun. Right? It's okay. Actually, no, it's not okay. You mean like it's only a problem if monks and nuns are greedy? And it's not a problem that you are greedy and consuming more than you should consume? No. You know, we have this idea. In fact, many Buddhists have this idea. Oh, you didn't take that vow. You don't have to keep it. Well, then we should not take any vows if that was the case. The vow not to kill, not to steal. I didn't take that vow.
So therefore it's not wrong.
Yeah, right. It's like, I didn't promise not to do it, so I can do it. No, that the Buddha gave these as ways of preventing us from creating suffering. So when that understanding begins to evolve in you, that is when the Sangha is not just those people out there that you can see, serving as examples on how you should live, but those people out there has now entered your heart. Like, I too should live like that. I too should live, if not in the literal details, at least in spirit, I should live like that. I should not consume more than what I need. I should restrain my body, speech, and mind. You know, there are some individuals where they come into a room and they fill up the room and suffocate everyone. The monastic training is to train you so that when you come in the room, either you occupy so little space, or you occupy the space completely in a different way. Such as like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He occupies the whole space. They say like an emperor, but not suffocating anyone. You know, that presence is so strong. That's one way of being present. Another way of being present is a monk or a nun, really training from the heart level. They come into the room completely. You don't feel that they are in your space. I have experience in being in the presence of such individuals. Most of them don't have any big names at all, but they're really sincerely training, working with the monastic form that the Buddha gave. That is the oldest continuous institution in human history. It's the Buddhist monastic order. That's the oldest continuous institution, unbroken to this day. It's the monastic order. But here in the West, we're like, oh yeah, it won't work. In America, oh, it won't work, it won't work. You know, it's like, no, don't say that. You know, Buddha started this, you know. Anyway, important thing is the inner Sangha has to turn up. Then it becomes a reliable refuge. Then the ultimate Sangha is when our actions of body, speech, and mind have become the Sangha. Have become now an example, an aid, a support for others. So these are the three refuges. Three refuges. And Buddha says, seek refuge in these three. And when you seek refuge in these three, then your formal training marks your kind of, in some ways it's like, this is when you are now on the path to awakening. So it says that if you don't have refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, you can have a very sophisticated understanding of Buddhist teachings. You're still not practicing the Dharma. you have a PhD in Buddhism, but you're not practicing the Dharma until and unless the Buddha, the Dharma, Sangha becomes object of refuge. So this is just some random words about the significance of refuge. Having refuge. Questions, comments? Maybe on Zoom? Or anywhere in this room? Yep. Yeah.
I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I wrote some notes, and one of them is that it is guided by a principle, the calling, and how we live our lives. And I feel a calling, but I also worry about how the same message is in different packaging, whether it comes from Tibet or Japan, China, Vietnam. Will the calling come to me in one of those? How do I pick? Because I feel called to the message, but I'm not sure about.
Sure, yeah. No one answer to that question, except to say, from my own experience, right? So just consider it as a suggestion. From my experience, I would say, okay, it helps to know that my zodiac is Taurus. I don't know how much you know about astrology, but I'm a Taurus. So one of the things about Taurus is we are like practical to a fault. So even my Buddhist practice is like that. So my answer to that question is you have to see what's available and what you have the most access to, what of all these different types that you can realistically connect to based on where you are living, basically what's available. So what's available, so you then you're like, oh, what's available under that roof? There are like 7 different flavors, you know?
I was just going to say,
yes.
Know me, and it means I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Then of course, then you look around and you say, of this 7, you know, where can I learn what I want to learn? Right? For me. Yeah. So the most important thing, I think, is with regards to the 7 or 4 or 5, do your best to not think which is more accurate, more pure, more original, more. That is sectarian nonsense. But it's more like, it's all food. Am I a noodle person or a rice person? Well, I don't know. Sometimes I like rice, sometimes I like noodles. Well, then when you like rice, eat rice. When you like noodles, eat noodles, and don't make a big deal out of it. Right? So just eat whatever you eat as long as you're nourished. And naturally things will evolve to a point where you say, you know what? I'm going to be a bread eater. Let it come naturally. Don't pick and choose. Remember that what you're seeking is nourishment. Right? But now, then there are like, you know, the raw food group maybe, you know. You're like, well, maybe I'm a raw food person, you know. Then just lots of chewing. It's only a problem where even subtly, you know, there's some suspicion, you know, oh, that's not really Buddhist, you know, like it's some corrupted form of. Then you will have a lot of suffering. Really, you know, because you're always suspicious, you know, after you are with one group, you know, but maybe this is not really what the Buddha taught, you know. So once you entertain that kind of suspicion, then you're constantly, maybe this is not, maybe this is not, maybe this is not. Then in the end, right, you might just come up with like, this is what the Buddha taught, but then hello, your confused mind has made that decision. People never really take that seriously, you know. So there are limits too to like, you know, you need to know. Yes, having said that, always remember, that's part of the problem. We don't know. But just eat. Yeah. Yes.
You said that when we notice deeply and really can cool down and see the true nature of impermanence and all that, that's when we can stop controlling and manipulating. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I need to work on not controlling and manipulating.
Oh, yeah, but you have to be patient. You can't short circuit and jump to, you know. I don't want to be controlling, you know. So the short answer to that is first of all, you need to be generous to yourself. Yeah. Some of us are very hard on ourselves. And then if you were born and raised in the South, I think there is some cultural stuff too, to be really hard and harsh on ourselves. That's what I have learned. I'm not from around here. And so I see this a lot, you know, people are trying so hard, you know. There are different ways of trying very hard when it comes to practicing the Dharma or becoming better people. But the way that involves like being very harsh and unforgiving to ourselves, you know, that one is not helpful at all. So I like to use the word cultivate instead of the word practice, because I feel that it communicates more accurately how the Buddha envisioned the spiritual path to be. In fact, the word the Buddha used is bhavana, and bhavana was originally an agricultural term. It's what farmers did to cultivate. So from there you can learn quite a bit, you know, like what this path requires, what this style of practice requires, what this form of spirituality requires. It requires both patience and attention. And so you need to pay attention, you know, when you're cultivating land. If you don't pay attention, you know, those darn weeds. And no, I'm sorry, you can't go to Cancun for a week. Even if you have neighbors who will take care of it for you, you come back, it's just a jungle. You know, or everything has dried up. Then you get upset at the neighbor, you know. Because in the end, nobody else can cultivate your land for you, right? So it takes a lot of attention. But that attention cannot be obsessive attention. It has to be skillful attention. And part of that skillful attention is a lot of patience. You cannot like... And here is my problem, right? My tomato plants are always too many plants. Why? Because just like what you expressed, you know, I need to learn how to give up control and being tight, right? So I want all these tomatoes, you know, so I buy way more plants than, you know, I can reasonably grow there. And then guess what, you know, blight happens. The whole project fails, you know. So it takes discipline, and it takes having a gardener friend that you trust, you know, to tell you, no, only four for here, you know. They're like, but, you know, no buts. You only have space for 4 plants, you know. Okay. So these two qualities, both attention and patience, is really important. So we want to be free, we want to be happy, but it cannot be forced. It has to be cultivated. And the work of cultivation takes a lot of patience. So then, right, it's balancing again between patience and also a sense of urgency. Both are necessary. Yeah, you're like, looks like this is kind of schizophrenic, but it's not, it's life. You know, Dharma practice is life, and life is messy. And Dharma practice is also messy, right? You need the right amount of urgency and also spaciousness. Too much space? Right? So that's the too much patience. Now it's become laziness. You're not paying attention anymore. Too much attention, you know, you cannot sustain. And then you exhaust yourself. And it won't work also. So just approach it as one, even just one, not like making, but deeply understand and appreciate, right? Even one less minute of controlling is better than not. And one less minute I can do it. Then be happy with it. Next time, 2 minutes less. Next time, 3 minutes less. Yeah? But what I can guarantee you is it's not going to be like incremental 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5 minute. Yeah? Around 5, it will suddenly be 50. But the beginning steps need to have a lot of patience. They say, they give the analogy, they say, you know, when you watch a bird take flight, this is before there are planes. When you watch a bird take flight, when they launch off, right, a lot of energy. But once they reach a particular elevation, they just slightly move their wings and they can ascend very high, very quick. Same with progress. At the beginning, it takes a lot of effort and it seems to take forever. But no, it's not going to take forever. Yeah. So, is there anyone who wants to... There's a formal ceremony for taking refuge. I think there's a couple of names, right? Yeah, yes. Oh, okay. So, okay. So we can do that. And so, different Buddhist traditions have slightly different ceremonies. Yeah? Like in the Theravada world, it's in fact, also in part because in the Theravada world, basically everybody in that community is Buddhist by default. So the ceremony is almost non-existent. Because from Yeto, you already say, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. Then in those areas of Asia where Buddhism is one among many religions, then obviously there's more important to carve a space out to say, you have done the ceremony, now you're a Dharma practitioner, you know, as opposed to you have not done the ceremony. So in the Tibetan context, which inherited this from India, even though in Tibet you could also say practically everyone is Buddhist, you know, but there is a ceremony which they inherited from India. And so in this ceremony, basically you say, you know, with, you know, everyone as witness, with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas as witness, the spiritual witness, right, with the community as a witness, from today onwards, I take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the Sangha. So basically, that's the wording. Then the preceptor, in this case it's me, to be clear, taking refuge with the preceptor present doesn't at all tie you to the specific preceptor, because my role is just to bring you into the door of Dharma practice. Then further down the road, if you develop a more personal relationship with different Buddhist teachers, that's exactly what you should be doing. So there's no, just to be clear. Because sometimes historically in Tibet, I mean, the head of my order has said very explicitly, he says, unfortunately, in Tibet, it has become a way to collect disciples, and say, you have taken refuge with me, you cannot go elsewhere. That sort of stuff. And he says, that's completely wrong. That's not what this is about. So to be clear, because part of this ceremony is also giving a name. So it's almost like a father giving a name to a child. So there's that sense in Tibet, And they say, no. The real meaning of giving a name is basically, so it says that once you have taken refuge, you need to change. You need to change your appearance. You need to change your name, and you need to change your attitude. Okay? Of the three, the first two is in order to support the third, to change your attitude. Okay? Changing name is just to mark a transition, a formal transition to saying, I now live my life with the Buddha Dharma Sangha as the reference point, rather than the confused world as reference point. So changing name, right? But no, you don't need to go to file papers to change your name. Changing appearance has to do with India. In India, ancient India, the three higher castes, there are four main caste divisions. The three higher castes, they all have, and especially, in practice, it's only the highest caste that maintain this appearance, which is the Brahmins, the men, they would shave their hair and leave one tuft of hair, like a little bunch of hair, like a tail, and that is the sign of highest caste, pure Brahmin. So in ancient India, when you take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, you cut that tuft. That is your saying, I no longer follow this old system where you are pure by birth rather than pure by your actions. The notion that somehow, you are special because of your zip code. You are special because of how you look, your skin tone, your blah, blah, blah. No. To take refuge in the three jewels is to say, from now on, I understand that if I'm going to be special, it's because I am training to remove the causes of suffering for myself and for others. So those are the three changes. You change your name, you change your appearance, and you also, change name, change appearance, and most importantly, changing attitude. Yeah. So this is, when it's a formal ceremony, then these three things are done. Yeah. So if we could have the refugees. Yeah, sure. Oh, right, changing appearance. I took a course in barbering, so.
What else do you need?
That's it,
That's
really.
it?
Yeah.
Okay, you want people to come?
So if we can have the refugees come to the front, that would be good.
So, yeah, I think it's, how many people, raise your hand again if it's you're planning to do it. That's
Yeah.
a lot, almost everybody. So,
You
Can I ask-
if
can I ask just-
if we didn't sign up ahead of time, can we?
It's okay.
none of
Yeah.
you did.
The only thing is this. There is one practical issue here, which is I was just looking that in terms of names, I only have 3 names for women.
For women.
I have a lot for men.
I
Yeah.
only have one that you gave me.
Oh, okay. So you're.
So, yeah, if
Yeah.
you have names already.
Yeah.
If you have names already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just are taking the ceremony.
Right.
For
Yeah. So I mean
Hang back
all.
a little, okay?
Yeah.
Hang back and let the
Yeah.
first
So
timers
so
come
yeah.
front.
So basically, even those of you who already have names and you wanted a name, it just means I have to go back to North Carolina and send you one. That's all. Yeah.
What kind of name is it?
It's a Buddhist name.
A Buddhist name. Okay.
Yeah. No, don't worry. I won't call you Bob.
Okay.
You have to change your name now. You're Bob. No, it's
I have another question.
yes.
What are the scissors for?
Huh?
What are the scissors for?
The cutting of the
I
hair.
don't have very much.
Yeah. Well,
No,
you know.
it's a little tiny, one hair. It's not really.
It's a tuft and
tiny bit of hair.
from where the opening.
Yeah.
So you know, like in terms of the name, it's like if you need a name, you want a name, but you don't have it, it's just let me know. Then later I'll send you one. I have 3 when I checked. The names themselves are not gendered. I mean, some Tibetan names kind of clear gender identification, but actually Tibetan names are not so clearly gendered, like, say, Western names. But why for me? Okay, so the explanation. So in the tradition that I'm from, which is the Drikung Kagyu lineage, we have, so these refuge names usually have 2 words. Yeah. So in my lineage, the custom is to use the first word. The first name is either Koncho or Rinchen. And they both mean like precious, which is actually jewels, like the 3 jewels. So Koncho or Rinchen. And then something, Koncho something, Rinchen something. Like Koncho Pema is like lotus. And you think lotus is a female name? No, I know as many men call Pema as women. And I know as many women call sun, Nima, as men call it. So Tibetan names are not gendered, except for some rare, So why it matters here is myself then. So Koncho and Rinchen, why the choice of Koncho and Rinchen? The founder of the lineage, his name was Rinchen Bel. So to honor him, we use Rinchen. Then we also use Koncho because the head of our order, for the last 7 generations, they were all their names have Koncho. So this is kind of like a form of genus, like, you know, like you're from this family now, right? So my colleagues often give their people who take refuge with them as preceptors, Koncho this, Koncho that, or randomly Rinchen this, Rinchen that. Again, I'm Taurus, you know. We like everything ordered, and so then I have started the habit of all the women is Rinchen something, and all the men is Koncho something. So then I have, you know, so that's why. Yeah. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter.
So I have a piece of paper we can write down people that didn't get a card.
Yeah. If you
And
want,
you
then
can
you can.
email
Yeah,
them
I can
or
just
whatever.
send to you. So anyway, so first things. So we have done already several of these things: arrange the sacred images, prepare the offerings, give the teachings about the 3 jewels. Then now the next thing is those taking refuge. we'll make 3 prostrations to the objects of refuge, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Then, of course, represented by this shrine here. So we make 3 prostrations. So we should do this now. So you might want to spread out so that you can have space to do that. And you can follow what I'm doing. Again, different traditions have slightly different explanation for the meaning of this, how, like all the movements in the prostration. Here in the Tibetan tradition, generally we say, so you raise your hand and then cup it like that, and it's like not flat. You're holding a jewel, so the front is sealed together, but the back is like that. So it's like you're holding. They say you're holding a precious jewel. Is what you're doing. So then you bring to your head, to your forehead. That is body. Then to your front of your throat, speech, and in front of on your heart, solar plexus. So body, camera. So body, speech, and mind. I pay homage, I take refuge. I pay homage to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So here, 2 hands, 2 knees, and forehead touching. So these are the 5 points. Of course, your toes too, but they don't count, they're part of feet. So 2 knees, 2 palms, and forehead. This is called the 5-point prostration. So then, you get up, and as you get up, you think, you come out of the state of confusion. Right? Come out of a state of confusion, then with body, speech, and mind, we pay homage to the objects of refuge. Then slowly come up, and then your hands go up. And then again, coming up from a state of confusion, waking up, body, speech, and mind. We take refuge. Pay homage first, actually. Okay, so 3 times. Buddhists like 3. That's all. No other meaning. So then 3 times. Okay, then it says you should kneel, for one's going for refuge, in the Indian way. And what's the Indian way of kneeling? Turns out it's also the Catholic way. Right knee. Right knee touching the ground, and left is up. Like this. Yeah. You can either sit down or do what he's doing, like up. Or you can sit down and put your hands like this. Yeah. I can guarantee you, you cannot stay like this for long. Right. So at least at the beginning, you should do this. Yeah. When I start, at the beginning, you should do this. Then don't hurt the body. Then if you need, just sit down and continue to hold your hand like this, okay? So again, it's not about austerity. Yeah? It's just in the Buddha's time, that's how people sought refuge. So we say, we establish like a connection to the good old days. Yeah? Okay, now, so please, for at least the first repetition, so you have to repeat after me these words while kneeling the Indian way, right? And with the right knee, yeah. And then, at some point you can switch, sit down, but continue to hold your palms together. So now repeat after me. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who abide in all 10 directions, please think of me.
Please think of me.
Preceptor, please think of me.
Please think of me.
From now until the end of this life, I go for refuge in the Buddhas, supreme among all two-legged beings.
Supreme among all two-legged beings.
I go for refuge in the Dharma,
I go for refuge in the Dharma.
supreme among all free from attachments.
Supreme among all free from attachments.
I go for refuge in the Sangha,
I go for refuge in the Sangha.
supreme among assemblies.
Supreme among assemblies.
From now until the end of this life,
From now until the end of this life,
I hold you, preceptor, as my spiritual friend.
I hold you, preceptor, as my spiritual friend.
So now, the second repetition. Again, if you're uncomfortable, you can sit down, but hold your palms together and repeat a second time. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who abide in the 10 directions,
Buddhas and Bodhisattvas
who abide in all directions, please think of me.
please think of me.
Preceptor, please think of me.
Preceptor, please think of me.
From now until the end of this life,
From now until the end of this life,
I go for refuge in the Buddhas,
I go for refuge in the Buddhas.
supreme among all with 2 feet.
Supreme among all with 2 feet.
I go for refuge in the Dharma,
I go for refuge in the Dharma.
supreme among all free from attachments.
Supreme among all free from attachments.
I go for refuge in the Sangha,
I go for refuge in the Sangha.
supreme among all assemblies.
Supreme among all assemblies.
From now until the end of this life,
From now until the end of this life,
I will hold you, O preceptor,
I will hold you, O preceptor,
to be a spiritual friend.
to be a spiritual friend.
The third repetition. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who abide in all 10 directions,
Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who abide in all 10 directions,
please think of me.
please think of me.
Preceptor,
Preceptor,
please think of me.
please think of me.
From now until the end of this life,
From now until the end of this life,
I go for refuge in the Buddhas,
I go for refuge in the Buddhas,
supreme among all those with 2 feet.
supreme among all those with 2 feet.
I go for refuge in the Dharma,
I go for refuge in the Dharma,
supreme among all free from attachments.
supreme among all free from attachments.
I go for refuge in the Sangha,
I go for refuge in the Sangha,
supreme among all assemblies.
supreme among all assemblies.
From now until the end of this life,
From now until the end of this life,
I hold you, O preceptor,
I hold you, O preceptor,
to be a spiritual friend.
to be a spiritual friend.
Then now you should think, although the voice is me, the preceptor saying, but you should think that it's the 3 jewels saying to you, this is the way. So I'm going to say that. And then when you hear that said, this is the way, meaning they accept you to be your protector, the Buddha Dharma Sangha accepts and tell you, this is the way, like showing you the way. Then when you hear this phrase, this is the way, you respond with excellence, excellent, right? And mean it, like, excellent, Then at that point, I will snap my finger. When you hear and see that I snap my finger, think that the objects of refuge is now in your heart. That's how you receive protection and refuge. Okay. This is the way.
Excellent.
So, again, the changing of the attitude, changing appearance, and changing of name. So now we do another 3 prostrations at the end. That's
to express thanks for being accepted by the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and the Dharma and the Sangha. So, 3 illustrations. Then, if you can come up to cut a little bit of the air. So then the symbolic meaning. So like I said, originally it was the context of India, of changing the appearance, is to cut that tuft of hair. Obviously, for us, we don't have that culture. So there's a deeper meaning, which is the cutting of confusion. Like you're saying, okay, I want it gone, to clear the confusion. So this cutting is not, so it's not just on top. So the cutting has to go all the way to the root and cut from there. So that it symbolizes like thoroughly uprooting. In the Buddhist tradition, obviously the monks and nuns, they would shave their head. There was a contemporaneous tradition in India called the Jains. They also don't have hair, they're monastics, but they are way more extreme. They pull their hair out one by one. Yeah, we don't do that here, so don't worry. Scissors. We don't pull. Is there a mask? I forgot to bring mine.
Yes.
Yeah, I should probably wear one. So because I was in Mexico City and with my God family, and halfway through, 2 of us caught COVID. We think we got it from the shaman. So thinking of that, it's like, ooh. I think we got it from the shaman. That was over a month ago. There were these shamans dancing around doing rituals outside of the main cathedral in Mexico City. So yes, so da, 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 da. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Turn that off. The hair has flown all over. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. So Namo is to take refuge, then Buddhaya, Dharmaya, and Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo 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 Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Sankhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sankhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sankhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya.
Any more papers?
Namo Sankhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya. 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 Namo Sankhaya. It'll have to be IOU.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see you next week.
Exactly. So
In North
if
Carolina.
Cheryl, you can start writing down for,
Okay, we're
or
ready
if
with
you,
my
yeah,
paper.
need a name, you give your name to Cheryl, and then we'll get the name to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Namo Buddhaya.
Okay,
Namo Dharmaya.
Karen,
Namo Sankhaya.
Sarah,
Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sankhaya. 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 Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya.
Namo Sanghaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, 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 Namo Sanghaya. Now take a moment to reflect on how all of us, all sentient beings, no matter who they are, no matter where they are, all we want is happiness. All of us don't want suffering. And because of that reason, we have spent the last couple of hours or so learning what we can about the true causes of happiness and the true causes of suffering. And whatever merit, whatever good, whatever benefit that has come from our spending time together, learning about the causes of happiness and the causes of suffering, we dedicate this good, we dedicate this merit to all beings everywhere, so that so many others who, while desiring happiness and not wanting suffering, try as much as they can, but they cannot find what we have found. So with this, we wish them that in their own time, in their own way, sooner rather than later, that they too encounter and come face to face with the true causes of suffering and know how to abandon that suffering, and the true causes of happiness and know how to acquire that. And ultimately, we wish that all beings altogether will return to our true home, to the inborn awakened state that we call Buddha. Changju Sem Chorim Poche Mage Banang Ge Gyuche Ke Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Be War Shu. Have a good night.